The Widow in the Washoe Valley Mansion. Washoe Valley NV. Explain my presence, or worse, escorted out like a misbehaving child. But it was quiet, and the mansion was still. Shadows stretched long in the fading light, and I felt the weight of the years hanging in the air, thick like dust. As the last group departed, I waited, listening to the sounds of the mansion settling around me. The echoes of laughter faded, replaced by an almost palpable silence. It was the kind of silence that seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to happen. I emerged from my hiding place, heart racing, half expecting a reprimand from the young docent. But the hall was empty. I walked slowly through the dim corridors, pausing to admire the intricate woodwork and the old photographs lining the walls. Each image seemed to tell a story, each face a reminder of lives once lived. The air felt heavier in the absence of human voices, and despite the warmth of the waning sun, a chill crept along my spine. I made my way toward the room with the gilded mirror, feeling a pull as though it had become a magnet for my curiosity. The door creaked open and I stepped inside. It looked much as it had during the tour, yet somehow different, darker. I could feel the weight of all that had happened here: wealth, loss, and the sorrow that clung to its walls. I approached the mirror, heart pounding. The surface captured the dim light, but seemed to warp it, pulling it into the depths of its glass. I reached out, fingers brushing against the frame, and for a moment, I expected to see my reflection staring back. Instead, I found only the empty room and the shadows behind me. Then a whisper of movement caught my attention. I turned swiftly, but there was nothing there, only the persistent silence of the mansion. Yet the feeling that I was not alone settled over me like a heavy cloak. "Is anyone here?" I called out, the sound of my own voice echoing unnervingly in the quiet. I listened, straining to hear a reply, but all I received was the gentle rustle of the wind outside. Turning back to the mirror, I felt an urge to speak, as though something in the air demanded it. "Eilley," I said, unsure if I was addressing the woman I had heard about, or merely filling the emptiness with words. "Are you here?" For a moment nothing happened. The room remained still, and I felt a bit foolish for speaking into nothingness. Just when I was about to turn away, I caught a glimpse of movement in the mirror. The figure appeared, pale and ethereal, standing at the window, just as I had seen before. Her dark dress swayed gently, as if caught in an unseen breeze. She looked out toward the valley, her expression one of profound longing. My breath caught in my throat. It was as if I could feel her sorrow, tangible and thick. Her gaze was fixed, unseeing but filled with a weight that tugged at my heart. I took a step closer, compelled by an instinct I couldn't explain. I whispered again, my voice barely above a breath. "What happened to you?" A chill swept through the room, wrapping around me, and her form flickered. In that moment I could see her more clearly, the delicate features, the sorrow etched into her pale face. And then just as swiftly she vanished, leaving me staring at my own reflection, wide-eyed and breathless. The silence returned, but it was different now. There was a sense of urgency in the air, as if the mansion itself was urging me to understand, to remember. I felt a burning desire to know more about Eilley and Sandy Bowers, about the life they had built, and the fortune that had slipped through their fingers like grains of sand. I exited the room, feeling lighter yet burdened. I wandered through the mansion, letting my fingers graze the walls and furnishings, absorbing the essence of everything around me. I found my way back to the main hall, where Mrs. Vance had led the tours. I knew there were stories buried within each piece, memories that had not yet faded into dust. As I walked, the air shifted again, and I could hear a distant whispering echoing down the halls. A sigh, perhaps, or a lament. I felt drawn toward it, my heart racing as if I were being led by an invisible hand. I followed the sound, stepping lightly, until I reached a door at the end of the hall. I paused, hesitating for a long moment, feeling the air grow heavier around me. Finally, I opened the door, and the murmur grew louder, surrounding me like a warm embrace. Inside was a small room, filled with keepsakes of a life once lived, letters, photographs, and trinkets, all left behind like fragments of a broken dream. I stepped inside, feeling a weight in my chest as I absorbed the remnants of Eilley's life. At the center stood a small writing desk, and upon it lay an old diary, its pages yellowed and fragile. I hesitated only briefly before lifting it, careful not to disturb its resting place. Flipping through the pages, I caught snippets of Eilley's thoughts, her hopes, her fears, and the slow unraveling of a life once full of promise. One passage caught my eye. How cruel is fortune that gives and takes so freely. I built a life of beauty, yet I watch as it crumbles before me. The laughter fades, and my shadows grow long. Am I to be remembered only for the wealth I once possessed? Or will the world forget Eilley Bowers as easily as it forgets the last leaf clinging to a winter branch? I felt a tear slip down my cheek. In her words, I sensed the truth of her existence, the pain of her loss, and the weight of her unfulfilled dreams. As I read, the room transformed, the air thickening with her presence. I could feel her pain, the ghostly remnants of her heartache fluttering around me, demanding to be acknowledged. In that moment I understood. Eilley Bowers was not a spirit to be feared, but a woman trapped between worlds, longing for recognition and remembrance. I felt the urgency of her sorrow and a responsibility to share her story. I left the mansion that evening with a heavy heart, but a sense of purpose. The world needed to remember Eilley and Sandy Bowers, not just as names in a ledger of wealth, but as people who had loved and lost, who had built dreams only to watch them fade. As I drove away, I glanced back at the silhouette of the mansion against the darkening sky. I could have sworn I saw a figure at the window, watching, waiting. I understood then that some stories are meant to be told, and some spirits are meant to be remembered. The widow in Washoe Valley would not be forgotten. Read the full story at AmericanGhostStories.com.